Excuse me, sorry, this is Dr. Kalia again, and this is video number 11 of coronavirus pandemic Terminator series. And we are going to briefly spend a couple of moments on slide number 48 to kind of refresh everybody's mind, and then we're going to go to slide number 49. So this was a picture of just a of the cyberspace picture that I saw of a crowded shopping mall. And you can see that all these surfaces, counter surfaces, are going to be contaminated, and no matter how nicely you clean, it's impossible to clean that after every cough that where the viral particles land, and this whole air is going to be contaminated. And so that's where I wanted to point out the flaw in the WHO's advice and the scientific blind spot in their thinking. We have to think of this inside air at airports, bus, train stations, factories, offices, and other public gathering buildings, air being contaminated. And think of two static shoppers in grocery aisles. They are never static. They're moving after each other and walking through each other's contaminated air. So the static shoppers is not a practical way of thinking of life. And then think of checkout counters and other public desk spaces, for example, doctor's desk or other office person's desk who has to interact with public. How do you clean those desk spaces with crevices, nooks, crannies, and keyboards and desktop keyboards? There is no mechanism to clean these things perfectly after every interaction. And would it even matter to clean them perfectly if the whole air is contaminated? And we already talked about these various public arenas. And cruise ships have another flaw in them. The air that's circulated in cruise ships is not always necessarily filtered through the HEPA filter. So once you have contaminated air in cruise ships, and then you circulate that contaminated air from one cabin to the next, that's a perfect disaster. And we saw that disaster with our own eyes in terms of Diamond Cruise ship that was parked off of Japan, and another ship that was parked off of California. And this is unfortunately devastating for the tourism industry, restaurants, bars, and other entertainment venues. And nobody, unfortunately, has any good answers. So the standard flawed advice with scientific blind spot is given liberally, but not necessarily thought through clearly. And then the other question I always wondered, and I've explained to many audiences before, is why do we like to and need to hang around so close to each other in the first place? Well, the underlying term is efficiency. So I'm going to explain that terms of why do we humans need to interact with each other and hang around each other so closely. So we're going to use the simple examples of a staple in a stapler and a paper clip. All of us humans, at least 90 or maybe 80% of us have used staples and paper clips. Yet not a single human being on this planet knows how to make a paper clip or a staple. These iron ores and other metals are mined somewhere in distant places. These huge trucks and bulldozers carry those mined ores, and they are smelted in factory smelters. And then these thin wires out of those metals, iron, steel, etc., are made. And then they are galvanized or nickel plated or electroplated. And then they are cut and shaped and packed. And then they are again loaded up in these huge trucks and are brought to stores like Staples and other stationery stores. So you can see how inexpensive a staple is, probably 1/10 of a cent or maybe 1/5 of a cent, or less than, definitely less than a cent. And if you were to make something like this yourself, it would be hugely impossible. But as and when we all humans work together, these things become almost priceless or inexpensive. Same thing for pants. How many of us really know how to grow cotton and weave our cotton, make jeans, and how to sew our pants, or for that matter, chicken at a South supermarket? When we go buy chicken from Kroger's, we all never really think about it. It seems like the chicken must have undressed itself, taken its feathers off, and chopped itself into small pieces and saran wrapped itself and put a label on it and came in the grocery market. But in reality, these things all involve complex human interactions, supply chains, behaviors that make all these things convenient. And same thing for a food item like spaghetti or air conditioning. How many of us could really make our own air conditioners and at the drop of a hat, when our air conditioner goes bad, look on Google and call air conditioner servicemen or women and have them come and repair air conditioner or AC maintenance, for that matter, water or water heaters. So all these things bring a huge amount of efficiency, and that's the reason we all humans aggregate and congregate in urban, dense environments, because that brings a huge amount of efficiency in our interaction and improves the quality of our life in some aspects, and makes cost of living go cheaper because everybody is specialized in making some product or service. And I remember when I grew up in India, we used to have hand pumps for pumping water from underground. And it used to be a huge chore, but that was still better than if you lived off of a creek and had to go and fill up buckets of water from a creek. But the moment those municipal water supplies came and we got taps in our house, suddenly the water, you just flip the knob on a tap and water started flowing around. So all these things make life very convenient, efficient, and that's the reason we all hang around. But the downside of it is when we hang around, we are in dense environments, and whenever some virus like coronavirus wants dense population to exploit, we become perfect victims for that. And in life in remote areas is very inefficient. Water may be contaminated, and you might have to you might live off of a near local water creek. You might have to walk a tenth of a mile, quarter of a mile, eighth of a mile just to get a bucket of water from the local creek. And you might have to learn some metallurgy to make your own axe and your own saw to chop down the trees and make your own nails. And with that axe, saw, and nails, you might be able to chop some wood and make some rudimentary housing, just like the kind of housing that used to be prevalent all over the world up until end of or middle of 18th century. Some houses that look like essentially barns. However, look at the modern housing now. You can't even recognize. And same thing for the food. You had to run after the animals like chickens, and they didn't saran wrap themselves like they do in Kroger's. And so for that reason, we are unfortunately or fortunately destined to live in crowded, densely populated urban places for efficiency reasons. How about that efficiency that comes in the form of travel, leisure, airplanes, trains, subways, buses, personal automobiles? Look at how efficient that makes travel for us. Again, there are downsides when you're in a crowded space in an airplane or in a train or a subway, and there is air contamination. Then question becomes, how do you manage that? And cruise ships are these huge small cities floating on the water, and unfortunately you're sharing water, you are sharing air, and you're sharing food with thousands of other people. And if the contamination starts, then it becomes a huge problem. And we have had multiple norovirus outbreaks. Those are gastrointestinal viruses on the cruise ships for many, many years. However, they never gained the international attention that coronavirus unfortunately has gained, and this is a very, very unfortunate situation for the cruise industry, and is really putting a wonderful industry in a huge jeopardy. So here we are at the end of March of 2020, in the middle of a coronavirus pandemic. So as you can see, a lot of these things are things of accident. These are not things that happen by comprehensive planning. There is no plan that we have that we're gonna, 10,000 years back, people didn't sit in the Serengeti and plan and said we are gonna build complex urban environments, but here we are. Some of these are accidents of efficiency. Nobody thinks, oh, we're going to live next to each other, so somebody can be an iron worker, somebody can be a carpenter, somebody can be a plumber, but it certainly helps to have all these people live near each other. And of course, we never calculate the price of that efficiency of densely populated environments, but we are living in that cost analysis now. And how much efficiency, density of population is desirable, tolerable. This is not the kind of a decision that one person like me can make, but certainly something worth contemplating as we plan future cities and future human habitats. And also we should contemplate what level of natural resource exploitation to support that density of population is tolerable, desirable, optimal. And again, there may not be any easy answer, but it'll certainly be worth our while to spend some time thinking about it. And since this is video number 11, and we are going to conclude at slide number 54, and then we'll pick it up in a few minutes from here on, in a minute. So this is the end of video number 11.